Thank you. It is my pleasure and an honor to introduce Doctora Angel Valenzuela. Dr. Angela Valenzuela is a professor in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy at the University of Texas at Austin with a courtesy appointment in Cultural Studies. She directs the Texas Center for Education Policy and earned her PhD in sociology from Stanford University. Doctora Valenzuela is the author of the award-winning book, Subtractive Schooling, U.S. Mexican Youth and the Politics of Change, 1999, and the founder of the acclaimed blog, Educational Equity Politics and Policy Indexes. She currently serves as chair of the Texas LULAC Education Committee and co-chair of the National LULAC Higher Education Committee. Doctora Valenzuela is a co-founder of Academia Cuatli, a community-based Saturday school partnership that serves elementary students and has had district-wide impact within the Austin Independent School District. She also co-founded Black-Brown Dialogues on Policy to foster coalition building and solidarity across racially and culturally diverse communities. Doctora Valenzuela is a member of the National Academy of Education.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. I really appreciate your kind introduction, and I'm just so happy to be here. Congratulations, day 5, everybody. It's been a fantastic institute, and it really just speaks to so much what I'm sharing today. I'll begin with my PowerPoint, which, if it serves me well, I'll just share here. Okay. All right. So creation resistance and the struggle for Mexican American studies is the name of my talk. Maybe we can all just take a deep breath and just settle into the morning. It's just such a privilege and an honor. I've been part of this community for some time, and it's wonderful to continue being in community with you. Gracias, muchísimas gracias. Se los agradezco mucho. Why am I not able to share? Well, can't I go forward? Okay, here we go. All right. Well, I've been connecting to my abuelas a lot, and I have for at least a couple of decades, looking for my origins. And this is my grandmother's grandmother on one side. That her name was Jesusita. I'm sorry, Jesusita Yepes, a daughter of Manuela Valencia Yepes. So she married into a Spanish family from Spain, and she was from that quadrant of southwestern Arizona, southeastern California, northern Sonora, Mexico. Pretty sure she was Apache. On the other side, Lipan Apache, again, doing my research right now as we speak. She passed away when I was 5 years old, and I had the honor of going to Presidio over the holidays, and it was over New Year's Day. And if anyone's been to Presidio, it's on the western edge of Big Bend Park, and that's Lipan Apache country. I mean, that is total Lipan, and so this is Eulalia Carrasco Ramirez, and yeah, I felt that since I was 5 when she passed away, and we were in the Philippines, because my dad was a medic in the Vietnam War, they would take the bodies of the American wounded soldiers to the Air Force Base there, Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. She passed away. She passed away, and I had never mourned her death, and feel like I'm just beginning to mourn her passing, and of course what I think her life was. And I have a special kind of newfound appreciation for that side of my family, which is very close to me. It was my grandmother. These are images of just a little bit of who I am. So you have a picture got family in San Antonio, so happy to head over today to visit our grandchildren. Others live close by here in Austin and Kyle. You see here my husband, Emilio Zamora, my dualidad, like we say, de Mexica, Emilio Zamora, historian. They'll be joining us this evening. There's me testifying on Senate Bill 37 recently in the Texas State Legislature. I teach policy at the University of Texas at Austin in education leadership and have prepared people um, for some time now to be policy advocates and researchers. This is one image of trips that we've taken. This is La Colaborativa Cuautli. It's part of our Academia Cuautli community, and I'll get to that as I get into the presentation. We recently just took a trip to Mexico City, and we really enjoyed learning, right? Learning about what I'll get to as well, La Visión de los Vencidos, Miguel León Portia's The Broken Spears from a Mexica perspective. I want to begin by honoring Dr. Roberto Singli Rodriguez, who passed away much too soon, but who left an incredible legacy for us and who uh, lived with that urgency for himself and for ourselves to really look into, investigate our own indigeneity. And so he's, beloved, dear friend. If you haven't read this book, I encourage you to read it. I've got it right here on my desk. It's Writing 50 Years, Más o Menos Amongst the Gringos, published by Juan Tejeda and Aslan Libre Press. Fantastic book. It's fantastic. Let me see. So here we have something that he's always reminded us of, and we've heard it in the Institute, this idea of the golden rule, but the Mesoamerican Mayan version of it, which is Ilakech, right? You are my other me, and some of us are familiar with us in the teaching of it and the Mexican American Studies Tucson in Arizona. But it's this idea that we are ultimately all very, very much interconnected as human beings. Tú eres mi otro yo, si te hago daño a ti, if I hurt you, I harm myself. Si te amo y respeto, if I love and respect you, I love and respect myself, right? And so that's very not capitalistic or individualistic, and so love and caring in my own work, right, is essential to life itself, because in caring for you, I care for myself. And if we just think about that in a deep way and just hold that as a thought, it is really powerful philosophically, right? That it's important for us to care in itself, but in doing so, we nurture our own beingness and doingness, and what we adhere to in terms of our values, right? And the hummingbird has become very important to me. It's been important to me as a symbol of spirituality, of the ancestors. In the most recent trip, and you see here, here we are with my doctor, with our community of teachers that went to Mexico this summer. There were 10 of us, and then we were getting instruction from Maestro Marinal Walsh, and so it was the tour that I've always wanted, from going to Mexico City. He's such a great teacher, to El Templo Mayor, and to Tenochtitlan and Teotihuacan, different places. Fantastic tour, because it was sort of that in-depth look of the Mexica cosmovision, right? And we read this book in anticipation of that that trip called The Broken Spears. If you haven't read it, it used to be Chicano Studies 101. It used to be back in the day. It was what everybody read. It was first published by the Nahua, La Visión de los Vencidos in the 1500s, and later translated into Spanish, and then after that into English and multiple languages. It's a great audiobook version. And you can just tell the care with which it was translated, and it's just this powerful firsthand, or almost as close as you can get to a firsthand account of not so much the conquista de Mexico, right? But if you think about La Visión de los Vencidos, it's like, it's the vanquished. It's a word that they were using before, perhaps genocide, right? It's the vanquish, which is a powerful word in Spanish. And so if you go to the first pages of it, there's some real, just like a powerful language, just off the bat about how no one ever cared or thought to, care enough to want to know about the cosmovision of the Mexica. And so that was what I took with me to Mexico upon reading this book in a trip that we took literally like 3 weeks ago. And what was amazing, it was raining there. And what I wondered was if the rain would follow us, and it did. It came back and it just kept raining and raining. And of course, a big part of what we learned about was, let me see, how do I go to? I want to go to the earlier. It's not letting me go to the earlier slides, but I wanted to learn about. I'll share again the cosmovision. Well, what was it? And I asked the maestro to tell me, and he didn't tell me. He demonstrated it. He's a good teacher, right? He's a very good teacher. And so let me fast forward, I guess. Okay, here we go. Back on track. Back on track. So the hummingbird, and I've been learning about it, and it's an avatar, right? For Huitzilopochtli, it's a vessel of divine presence. As Rosa Tupina Yotanalcuautli, our jefa de la danza, you'll see her in that image there, always teaches us is that our ancestors were great at metaphors, right? And so there's many layers here when you think about Huitzilopochtli, and I can't go into all that I know or am familiar with, but if you see the two temples there, one is to the rain, they call it the rain god, and they were really energies, right? That was what Maestro Walsh made clear. These are really energies, the rain god. And of course, we were experiencing the power right now of the rain god. And we experienced it while we were there. There, it's not raining, but it did rain every single day that we were in Mexico. And then the other is Huitzilopochtli, and it's really, like just provocative to me because they built the Aztecs temple 7 times, right? Um, and and so every single time, they're making obvious decisions about what to build it to, and to the fact that it was always centered in the rain and the water energy, and also the hummingbird energy, and the sun energy, right, is provocative. I mean, especially when you think of the hummingbird as being such a tiny little creature, right? And what, I mean, why not the jaguar? Why not a tiger? Why not a puma, right? And like let's start over. And I've just always been intrigued by that, and I now have a fresh understanding that if you think about, the hummingbird, and here's a kind of an image, an illustrative image that shows that the hummingbird, the biggest part of the hummingbird is its chest, the pectoral muscles, and behind that is the heart, right? And so it's that energy that is part of the cosmovision of the Mexicas that is very heart-centered, right? That is, and from the heart is volition, and the heart is will, it's passion. It's also forgiveness, right? It's self-forgiveness, it's mercy, right? It's all it's emotions, it's all of these aspects that are just so comprehensive, really, in terms of who we are as human beings, right? We're also the mind, and the mind is a very powerful energy center, and hopefully our minds and our hearts are working in tandem. And so I think when we combine this, um, this way of viewing the world, there's greater balance, right? This is the idea here. So the heart, I just mentioned, is just it's generates the most powerful electromagnetic field. And I'll quote Nikola Tesla here, and I've been reading his book. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And he was a contemporary of Mark Twain, and he was an eccentric guy, lived in New York, and the guy could carry around fire, and people thought he was a freak, but he actually had a very deep understanding of energy and how it works. And if you get into discussions in theoretical physics, there's that discussion of, well, what is it? Is it the particle or is it the wave, right? Well, you can't have the particle without the wave, right? And so theoretical physics also lends itself to this perspective of the powerful of energy, frequency, and vibration. This is what I see this whole week being about. It's resonating at a high level of vibration that we hear the words inspire. We're hearing just such beautiful ways to discuss what we're all feeling. Um, Freedom comes to the recognition that the I does not exist, but rather mi otro yo, my other self, in like edge. That's a great feeling of fraternity. This is quoting Roberto Sintli Rodriguez, that prevented human beings from being wolves to each other, the enemy of human beings. In this manner, the Maya thinkers seeded the basis for human rights centuries, actually thousands of years before modern humans began to speak of issues of social justice. So just again, honoring our maestro, our ancestro. And I spoke about this already. You've got to read it. I think it's so appropriate right now to read in an epoch of institutional dismantling, of institutional unraveling. The Aztecs weren't they weren't innocent by any stretch of the imagination, but they were not genocidal. They were not. There we go. So the philosophical foundation of what it means to be human, and I got this from Roberto, who referred me to this text by Martinez Paredes, is mentioned in Lakech. It's also um, Hunabkud, which is a part of all creation, the supreme being, this grand architect, a great mystery, right, of the universe. And it's Panchame, it's to seek the root of the truth, to find the truth in the roots. And I think of critical race theory, and I appreciate and have written in the area of critical race theory. I think there's something deeper still, and I want to claim that for this institute. And there's something deeper that is pre these constructions of race that are really modern constructions, right? Race comes in to being with the Portuguese, right? The Portuguese that began the enslavement of African peoples, and then later in the Americas, of course, we see race with the consolidation of slavery. But even before the consolidation of slavery, we had the very cruel difundia systems that enslaved Native peoples and its own genocide. So now I want to go to the second part, and then there's one more part after this. Um, Creation resistance, again, a term that Saintly brings into our lexicon. The ethnic studies movement is creation resistance. We could spend another 4 or 5 weeks talking about all the work that we're doing. All of the work that you're doing is and that we're doing is creation resistance. And so felicidades, Us Teachers Academy, a decade of resistance. Felicidades. And And Academia Cuautli as well, our Saturday school, which is more than just a Saturday school, but it's we celebrated our 10 year, and now we just finished our 11 year anniversary. This grows out of the ethnic studies movement that we've been proud of. That is a legacy agenda for our communities. That Martha Cotera, an elder who I love and respect, who's my mentor, said it began when we were in that instance in which we were first oppressed. Right, that's what she says, and it makes sense to me, right? Because the art of coming into consciousness was the art of teaching that truth, right? That history. Um, so here we are, Academia Cuautli, desde Austin, Texas. And so we like to think of our space as a third space. We're a Saturday school, a parent program, a research site, a summer collaborative, as you just discussed, a collaborativa. We have a danza mexica, Aztec dance, which means ceremony, not dance. We don't teach dance; we teach ceremony to our children uh, since 2014. So if we think of third spaces, relying on Homi Baba, relying on Emma Perez, it's that space that's between the overprescribed school, right, especially through high stakes testing and all of these ways in which schooling is regimented, and the underprescribed space of the home that then uh, allows us to be a space that's in between, where there's epistemic freedom, right? There's freedom. And that's what our teachers always tell us is why they love being at Academia Cuautli, because they feel free to highly impart the instruction that they know how to teach. This involved we've talked about the State Board of Education a number of times, but it also involved a local school board strategy. And in 2016, we were able to get, with our champion, Paul Saldana, to get ethnic studies ethnic studies approved in the district. Cuautli means eagle. So Academia Cuautli means Eagle Academy. Does anyone recognize this eagle? It's the golden eagle from Mayor. It's Aeromexico. It's a symbol for Aeromexico, right? But it's a golden eagle. So we'll see if this works, just so that you can get a flavor um, for Academia Cuautli. Is it? Can you hear it? You can't hear it.
No, no. Are you
Okay,
making a video?
I think I have to change the sound. Oh, yeah, I don't know how to do this.
Say, see if you can reshare and then make sure you click
The audio.
optimize for sound. Yes.
So how do I optimize for sound? Yeah,
On
I don't know.
on the right side, where
Hmm.
there should be like layouts, it says share sound.
On the right side of what?
When you click share,
Oh, okay. In the wrong spot here. Advanced sharing options. Yeah, it's showing up for me. I'll just give y'all the link and I'll put it in the chat because I don't want to take too much time. I think I'm not good at this stuff. Let me see. So I'll quit out of this. Maybe I'll stop sharing this. I can go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, maybe this is. Yeah, I'll just share it in the link. I'm sorry. This isn't working. And Isabel Mian, Dr. Mian did this logo for us back in the day, 2014. Some of you may know her. So wonderful, wonderful young scholar. And so when we think about creation resistance, I do want to also just center policy, or engaged policy, the idea that policy isn't just a text, right, or statute, but it's something that is lived, right? It's people. It's really doing the work of it, the advocacy. And so and I'll share the PowerPoint with all of y'all. But there's different pieces to it. It's an art. I think of it as an art. What the right does very well is they create an echo chamber. In policy, we call it agenda setting. And so it's all of these aspects of teaching. You see that at the very front, writing policy briefs, community engagement, bearing witness, building coalitions and statewide organizations. There's also different levels of policy, levels of engagement, local, district, university, state, national. What we like to say at Academia Cuautli is that we have the eagle's vision, and the eagle is unique in having that 360-degree vision, right? And which means that I don't have to know all of these levels and be an expert in every aspect of policy development, but together we have the eagle's vision, right? In community, and like us here, together we have the eagle's vision in just a big, big enhanced perspective of what Mexican American studies is and can be. So now I'm going to pivot to talk about implications for Gen Z. This is the last part of my my presentation, and I've been studying this for some time, and I've been listening to podcasts. I read a lot of news accounts, and so you have a sense of who Gen Z is, and maybe you can find yourself in this diagram. These are they call them social generations. They're also called age generational cohorts, and there is an arbitrariness of this, but there's also a way in which it's not arbitrary in that these are linked to developments in technology. So it's phenomenal that Gen Z has grown up. I mean, many of you are Gen Z or younger millennials. You've grown up in a world where you've only known technology, right? We didn't grow up with as boomers. I'm a baby boomer with the kinds of technology that we all have and that we all have today. So Gen Z is the most diverse age generational cohort in the United States. And it's not just racial and ethnic diversity, but it's gender diversity. This is the most queer generation in the history of the United States. And this is done by scholars who are doing the quantitative analysis, right? Not just the qualitative, but, and I rely a lot on Jean Twenge, who has dedicated her life to studying generations and has written many books on, and who herself amasses quantitative data to make a number of determinations. There's a lot to this kind of research, right? It's not just comparing across generation, but it's also looking at period effects, like things that are also felt widely by people in a certain generation. So a major period effect for millennials was 9/11. And I would even add to that personally, the Dreamer movement and the immigration movement. I mean, just really widely experienced impacts. And for for Gen Z and also Gen Alpha, which is coming up from behind, these are our babies, my grandchildren, right? It would be the pandemic as a significant period effect that impacts consciousness, and it also impacted the ability, together with technology, of course, for people during the pandemic to find each other. So we see this flowering of identity that that brings into an enhanced consciousness. Afro-Latinas, Afro-Latinos, Blaxicans, Indigenous people, Afro-Chicanas, Chicanxes, right? Just a real flowering of identity. They do tend to be progressive, especially the females. And if you look at the gender data, it's a big gulf. Again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, a huge gulf between males and females. It's a little disturbing to me. And of course, that impacts people that are eligible to date, right, and to marry. Like connections between young women and men these days. But it also, I think, has led to a moment that we're in of radical kinship, which is another topic, such that the many old ideas have been broken down of who can live together and make a life, right? And I think that's liberating. I think it's very positive. It scares the right. It scares the Christian nationalists. But it's reality. It's not the kind of thing that will go back into the closet. Gen Z is the first generation to see itself as a generation. I mean, as boomers, we just kind of lived. We didn't think, you know, we're we're boomers. We didn't really think about that. And I think Gen X too, and to some extent, millennials. And again, I think a lot of younger millennials are part of Gen Z, right? Because they're experiencing the similar impacts of technology. We got pronouns from younger millennials and Gen Z. We got pronouns. Who the heck changes the structure of the English language, right? I mean, that's powerful. That's really powerful. It's a powerful generation. They're digital natives. And they use social media to organize and resist. 2/5 of all eligible voters and growing are Gen Z. That's powerful. John Della Volpe covers this. John Della Volpe shows how Gen Z can be influential in elections. And so this is definitely a group that needs to be brought in, that needs to be part of our circles. And again, I understand I'm talking to a lot of you who are also Gen Z or younger millennials. But what the research says, right, what studies are saying is that it's not automatic. The loyalty with Gen Z is earned, right? And so it's important to do what we do and to focus on youth, to continue doing that with intention. So in terms of the future, we're looking at reclaiming knowledges, rebuilding futures, especially again, as I mentioned, in an epoch of institutional unraveling that is significant and that will impact Gen Alpha that's coming through, right? And Gen Beta. I mean, we're going to see long-term impacts of this epoch that we're in right now of institutional unraveling. The future of MAS is indigenous, it's decolonial, it's transformational, it's intersectional, it's intergenerational. I don't know that we've said this enough, but we need to work together across the generations. And it's community-based and community grounded, it's grassroots. I mean, you should have dirt under your fingernails from doing this work, right? We must prepare critically conscious teachers. I have a book by this title. We must do this. We must continue supporting our community-based institutions. We have a convening this evening if you're in San Antonio at the Esperanza Peace Justice Center to continue the conversation at 6 p.m. And it does require effort and to a great extent sacrifice in this work, right? And but we have to do this if we are um, to be exitosos, right, in our own way as ways of knowing, being, and doing in our communities. We need to expand MUS programs in K-12 and higher education. Very encouraged by the recent SBOE policy decision on Native American studies. In some weird, twisted way, the whole attack on critical race theory was super interesting because it happened at the same time that our ethnic studies bill was making it to the Senate floor back in, was it 3 sessions ago? And so rather than take on ethnic studies, they passed critical race theory and allowed our bill on ethnic studies to die in the House. And so I approached Brian Hughes, who had that bill at the time, and I said, hey, I know why you didn't pass Mexican American studies and ethnic studies, it's because you didn't want to take us on. I told him to his face, you didn't want to take us on. You'd rather pass an anti-CRT bill than take us on. And so uh, I think that's true because they have people who are Native American, Asian American, who are Mexican American, and so on in their districts. And so I think we have a symbolic edge, but we need to make that become a reality and pass ethnic studies at the state level. We must defend bilingual education and incorporate mass and ethnic studies into bilingual education. And that is an ongoing conversation. We must oppose high stakes testing. That's another area of mine that's, that's really important that I've focused on in policy for well over 20 years and with some success, but still, we're fighting that. And we must fight takeovers, right? We must defend our schools. We must defend public education no matter what. That doesn't go away. We must develop third spaces where us can get taught. And we must consolidate our gains by codifying State Board of Education policy into statute. As long as it's not in law, it's on shallow ground. I do have a sample of critical texts for disentangling forces that are at play in politics. These are some texts that I teach in my classes. There's the QR code. It's also, I think, in the folder that I shared with Dr. Saldana last night for day 5. So in closing, we're still here. Aquí estamos, no nos vamos. Let's do work that matters. Que valga la pena, like Gloria Saldúa reminds us of. Mass is a sacred ancestral force for justice in troubled times. Truth is revolutionary. We are the prophecy returning. We were made for this moment. I feel that way, and I hope that you share with me in that feeling. I feel that I was actually made for this moment. That's the colibri spirit within me. That's the passion. That's the coraje, frankly. That's the will. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, right? And it's that power that we have that is that cosmovision that our ancestors have blessed us with, that I encourage us all to just hold on to and to secure. Muchísimas gracias, adelante. I've shared earlier this week that the hummingbird was following me, and I was just shocked at this restaurant that I ate that it was there. So, but ahí está el colibrí. Es esa pasión, it's that, that compassion, that corazón, that I feel so blessed. I just feel so blessed to enjoy and celebrate in my relations, in my community, and in the work that I do in community. Muchísimas gracias. So yeah, if you have any questions, thank you. Continue to fight back against rolling back rights. Sin pelos en la lengua, right? We must continue to organize. I'm always reminded, I teach, I have taught in the past, Silent Covenants by Derek Bell. I don't know if you've read that, but there's and he's the father of critical race theory. And he was a person who was involved with Thurgood Marshall and others in the South to take down segregation, right? To desegregate, to integrate schools at great personal sacrifice and risk to himself. And what he says at the back of the book is that, yeah, when we didn't always win, right? We had a lot of losses, but it was the very act of standing up to power that was itself triumphant. And so when I think, and I do think about this, when I think about how I'm going back to Roberto Cindy Rodriguez's concept of creation resistance, that that what we do, our struggles aren't merely reactive, right? They're generative. And I mentioned yesterday that we fight within and against the colonial matrix of power. And as soon as I say that, I think of how exhausted often feel in that struggle, I think that it'd be awesome to not have to fight so hard or for so long sometimes, right? But in that instance of thinking that, I think if it weren't for the struggle, we wouldn't be together. And, we might get together, but we would get together differently. We wouldn't be the same people who we are. And I value so much our relationship. We're not just reactive. We're also generative. We create. We build institutions. We're going to rebuild them. I mean, it's in our hands to do it. It's in our destiny to do it. And so we create when we learn from our books, our readings, our ancestral memory, our spiritual praxis, and our collective will to survive and flourish. Right? We have to continue to resist these standardized narratives, these colonial logics, and Seatley reminds us that resistance is not always loud or confrontational. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's multi-voiced, but it takes the form of just beingness and doingness, and it's ceremony, it's poetry, it's artistic expression, it's lessons, as he would always say, is rooted in East-based epistemologies, or the epistemologies of the heart, right? And so I see this echoed in all of our work, right? We insist on policy and policies that are rooted in dignity and belonging and relational accountability. So, we reject this, this binary of resistance versus submission. And I think the idea is to be the colibri, the hummingbird, the witilin that like we should Huitzilopochtli through our will, our coraje, right? That also our love and our passion, our caring, and our forgiveness and our mercy, all these, just incredible powers of the heart that allows us to bring our full beingness, our capacity to grieve, to dream, and to remake the world anew.
Hi, Dr. Valenzuela. Thank you so much for your wisdoms, your words. My question is what's wrapped up in this? You often speak about the importance of authentic caring in schools. Um, how can educators build that kind of care in systems that are so focused on compliance and testing?
Well, I think, first of all, I think our educators need to be policy advocates much more than they are and have been. And I'm not just talking about at the Texas legislature, but I'm talking also about local policies, right? Like check out your policies that and hold your leadership into account. If you look at critical race theory, Senate Bill 3, there's actually a lot that you can do. I mean, like uh, others will think of it as the worst bill possible in the world. I actually don't hold that opinion, but it's because I know that bill. And if I were a teacher, I would copy that bill and I would paste it to my wall. And I think that creates space for teaching the precious knowledge, right? I think that authentic caring is something that is with intention, right? We have to like not just imagine ourselves. I think that again, there's those epistemologies, and I'm speaking to this audience, not to another audience. I'm saying that it's important to meditate. It's important to pray. It's important to meditate, to focus a lot on who you are. Think about your posture, right? I had this one experience with this young man, an Anglo young man who uh, at the end of the semester in a course on race and ethnicity, he was a bilingual educator, young guy who never spoke in class. At the end of class, I said, was there anything that you learned that was different, that maybe or made you think about something differently that you'd like to share? And he stood up. It was amazing. And I could tell that he was a good person, and he really wanted to like grasp, in retrospect, where he was failing and able to connect to his own children. And he wanted that. He had gone to Latin America, he learned Spanish, um, and came back bilingually, wanted to be a bilingual educator, and realized that it was his posture. That's what he said. He says, what I learned is that uh, I don't have the right posture in my classroom. He's a white man teaching bilingual education with little, immigrant children. Had all the theory right. Was taught by Kathy Escamilla, right? And others that they're in Boulder. But he came to that's subtle, right? And maybe not so subtle. But if you think about posture, how do you approach people? That's beingness, right? Is it really with this epistemology of the heart? Is it with this energy of love towards community, right? An asset-based perspective, or is it one of looking down, right? Even just in your body language, right? Maybe not in your soul, but just in your body language. And anyone is susceptible to that. And so I think it's an exploration. It's an exploration into self. And I think we've all had to check ourselves and to see how we are with our students. And I know that I've benefited so much from meditation, and I meditate every day, every single day, and I've done it for years. And one of the ways in which it's benefited me is that a major way, is that it helps me to know when there is trouble, right? It helps me to have that intuition to be able to read people and to know that if there's a problemita, it's not with me, right? Because generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, it's with something that's happening with the students. It's at the atmosphere, and it's also telling students in ways that are overt and maybe not so overt, again, attached to beingness, that they belong, right? That they're cared for, that their parents care for them, that their community cares for them, where it's not an embarrassing thing to say or be or do, right? I mean, así nos hablamos en la Academia Pauli. It's beautiful to have a discourse, right, that is explicit. Pues yo te amo, yo te quiero mucho, right? Or what's the problem, right? So I mean, because of our cultura and who we are, I think we have that pathway, that entryway into those ways of knowing and being that just resonate. Kids know. I mean, even if you don't like ever say a word, they know, right? And I know when I'm cared for, and I know that I prosper at my age, right? I prosper in spaces where I'm cared for, and I know that you do too. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? I'm not looking at the chat. Dialogue, yes, it requires deep, passionate listening, especially of those who have not spoken. And this is a very important um, thank you. Is that Aurelio? Yeah. Point, because a lot of times it has to do with just getting lost in translation, especially for our bilingual, bicultural students, right? And so that we need to be sensitive to children not commanding all of the discourses, and a lot of that is related to language and language ability. Not all of it, of course. Yes, Jody. Did I say your name right?
Yes, yes, you did.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Jody. Did you make a comment in the chat?
He's having technical difficulty.
Oh, okay. We'll wait for him to come on.
Now?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sometimes I have to replug my headset in. But I used to be a ranger at Big Bend Ranch and live in Presidio. And I'm very observant, and I would speak to the superintendents at both the state park and the national park. And at the national park, they have no Spanish-speaking rangers. And going through the MOS program, one of my ultimate life goals is to create an educational pipeline so that the children of Presidio, whose whose ancestral land that is, can be educated and trained to be rangers and caretakers of the land in that area. And I just feel like that population is overlooked. And I was super happy when the cemetery was finally officially designated the Lapanapachi, and so I was just really when I heard you say that at the beginning of your talk today, of your platica today, it really touched my heart.
Oh, how beautiful. Do you know Cristina Hernandez, the Eagle Staff Bearer?
No, I
Well,
don't.
we can connect later, but she's phenomenal, just phenomenal, and is one of the persons behind the burial site.
Oh,
Yeah. These mounds of rock. It's really amazing territory. It's really extraordinary, and um, just so inspired by the work that is being done. They're a very poor community, right? But really wealthy in its inheritance and heritage. Is powerful.
and
Yeah,
it's
and we can
incredible.
talk afterwards.
Yeah. It's incredible to me that they bring people from all over the country to work there when they have, homegrown people who have a spiritual connection to the land that would be much better stewards and facilitators and park rangers out there, that they can draw from the local population.
Yeah, well, Christina's from there, and she's doing a lot of the bringing of people. She grew. She's Apache, Lipan Apache, and so she's doing a lot of that work. It's phenomenal. But yeah, they have lots of people coming. It's kind of near Porvenir if you want to do a trip to Porvenir, Texas. I know it's come up in some of the presentations. Is there anything else?
It's Maestra Cisneros here.
Yes.
You're so calm and collected. I am so angry y sentimental. Like I've had this algo torado en mi pecho since January. Like, ¿cómo le hace? ¿Cómo le hace para hablar tan calmado, tan educada, tan calmada? ¿Cómo le hace?
Well, first of all, you don't want to see me angry. I've got that Apache blood in me, man. And you'll hardly ever see me angry, because you don't want to see me angry. And I don't want to see myself angry. Because I lose it. But we can be righteous, right? There's nothing wrong with being righteous, the righteous rage. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of reason to manifest that. But I mentioned that I do meditate a lot. I've been doing it for years. I pray. I grew up in the church, right? I have just a long history of being involved in community, and I love to meditate. I don't know if any of you do that, but it's just been so rewarding. And I've had coraje within me. I've had, like situations where I've had difficulty forgiving, including myself, right? And so I've had to do a lot of inner work, right? A lot of inner exploration. And I think that the most awesome experience truly is when through meditation and through prayer and reflection, I have experienced that shift at the molecular level. One of the things that I've learned in meditation as well is that there's this thing that is called attachments, right? And attachment could be anything. And I think it's even part of the Bible, the most mystical part of the Bible in Matthew, where Jesus says that that which you bind on earth, you bind in heaven, and that which you bind in heaven, you bind on earth. Which was interpreted, I think, incorrectly as a justification for the building of the church in Rome, right? I mean, there's like a whole history around that, and real differences in the communities back in the earliest centuries of Christianity, whether there should even be a church, right? Because the Gnostics felt that why have a church when we can be all transcendent, and in Christ. And after Christ's resurrection, at that time, there was real questions whether Christ had even arisen, right? In that time period, and that speaks to, I think, this more kind of mystical, this way of understanding beingness, where beingness is should be free, like be free, live a great life, right? It doesn't mean be wealthy. It doesn't mean to win. It means to live a life that is triumphant, right? I mean, we are living that when we are passionate, right? When we have that will, ese poder, we know we're powerful. We don't have to show it, right? We know that we are. In fact, the less that you show it, the more powerful you are. And there's power in presence. Let's not underestimate that. Just showing up and being a body is powerful. Right? There is power, and there's pieces that we've published. If you can go to the day 5, there's a recent one where we outline that, and we draw on Martha Cotera, who first expressed that to me, but also other scholars, right? Just other scholars who talk about the politics of refusal, right? And the politics of being present. And so I think that these are things that we are entitled to, right? To have peace and to enjoy peace and to release ourselves from attachments. I mean, that is possible, right? Things that hold us down, that again might have to do with having to forgive someone, right? And someone that you have to work with, that you have to be close to be able to literally forgive them at the molecular level, through prayer, meditation, reflection, is such a blessing. And that is to live a life triumphant. And one doesn't take that into that next realm of existence in our afterlives, right? And we can all have that. It's not reserved for anyone. It's reserved for us all. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I'm not with our own children, right? I mean, we blame our parents for stuff that happened, right? And our children are now blaming us for stuff that happened. And, and I had to tell my daughter, I said, be free, right? Live a great life. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really am. I can't be any more sorry, but that shouldn't hold you down. And so I know that those kinds of just real honest conversations are, especially with those that we love and care for so much, are just so liberating, just so powerful, beginning with you and me, right? And so I'm glad. I'm very glad and happy to be in that space, because these are the skills that no one teaches you, right? But that you have to stumble across and find yourselves. Well, there are shortcuts, right? And I do read the Bible. I do read the Quran. I do read I do read Rumi. I mean, who doesn't read Rumi, right? And philosophy. Uh, uh, what's his name? Tolle, the philosopher. And then I'm just so inspired by our indigenous cosmology, right? I mean, I really am the cosmovision. I mean, that's a powerful word, right? But but it was duality and balance, right? It was the dual forces of the sun and the moon, the light and the dark, order and chaos. Esta dualidad, right? And so the cosmovision is dynamic equilibrium, right? That's what they wanted for us. They wanted us to have reverence for the natural and the cosmic order, for the sacred cycles. They had two calendars. One was the 365 day, and the other one was a 260 day for ceremonies in the former for agriculture. There was a concept. I just really got into this cosmology, this philosophy, this last trip to Mexico, and there's this concept of Teot, Teotl, which is I think it's the hummingbird. It's the animating force. It's sacred. It's divinity, right? It's immanent. It's an intrinsic part of the universe, as our theoretical physicists remind us. I recommend highly Ernesto Collin's work on Mexica education. He talks about education for the Mexica, and education was so important to be a full human being. You could not be a full human being according to Mexica philosophy, Aztec philosophy, unless you got along with children, unless you could be good and in good relationship to children. Can you imagine if our State Board of Education members and if all of our legislators had and were had an education and were in an epistemology where they couldn't be success at full adulthood unless they were good with children? We would live in a radically different world if that were so. But Ernesto Gordillo's work is outstanding and talks about these aspects of ways of knowing, being, and doing that are gone to so many of us, but that I think we can recover. And I think that as we're in this epoch of institutional unraveling and we're rebuilding, let's continue thinking about third spaces, right? And ultimately spaces that won't replicate the old ways of knowing and being and doing that have been so harmful to us as we do the rebuilding. The future is ours. It is ours, but we have to own it. And we have to live that life triumphant that Derek Bell mentions. We have to live it. And we do that by claiming that life triumphant every single day. I'm almost ready to claim victory, by the way, because if the best that you can do in policy is to beat up on kids, to beat up on trans youth, to beat up on LGBTQ communities, to beat up on women, if that's the best that you can do, you won't inspire another generation. You have no vision for another generation. So I am almost ready to claim victory in the ashes of institutional unraveling because we can claim today, all of us, a life victorious.
Thank
so
you
much
so
for that.
much. Oh,
Thank you. Go ahead.
okay. So yeah, thank you for that talk, Doctora Valenzuela, and humanizing this spot and providing the inspiration for us to keep this work going. We just want to thank you again, the whole collectiva of MAS. You're amazing. Keep on going.
Thank you so much. You are too.
Thank you.